told you! Homer Simpson only got a high-level job because someone was secretly controlling every word that came out of his mouth. It sounds impossible, but in this episode, Homer becomes a kind of corporate Frankenstein monster guided remotely by Professor Frink, and everything spins out of control very fast. The story begins with a flashback showing Homer 15 years earlier, full of energy, ready to work, dreaming about climbing to upper management. But when we jump to the present day, everything has changed. Homer is older, tired, and completely unmotivated. He falls asleep at work, reading a food magazine, and when he wakes up, he discovers he left work 40 minutes early, dropping to the very bottom of the power plant ranking. Feeling defeated, he goes straight to Moe's bar, where he meets Professor Frink, who also feels like his life has gone nowhere. Then suddenly, Homer receives a phone call. Someone reviewed his resume and wants to interview him for a high-level position at a modern nuclear plant in Shelbyville. Homer panics because he knows he cannot pass the interview alone. So he begs Frink for help, and Frink reluctantly agrees, even though he already senses this is a terrible idea. At home, Homer tries to reassure Marge that everything will be fine, but deep down he knows he is not ready. When the interview begins on Zoom, Frink hides off, screen-feeding Homer every answer through a secret earpiece. The interviewer, Dr. Spivak, quickly realizes something. Feels strange, but she is forced off the call, leaving Homer alone with the main recruiter. Ani Korhinen, guided by Frink, Homer suddenly speaks like a genius, calm, confident, and professional, impressing everyone. He gets the job, and Dr. destroys her laptop in frustration, believing he has finally become successful. Homer quits the Springfield nuclear plant and returns to Frink, begging for help to survive his first day in the new job. Frink gives him special glasses and a headset, allowing him to control Homer remotely like a scientist puppeteering his creation. Homer arrives at the new plant and is shocked to learn Dr. Spivak has also been hired, but as his assistant. Spivak grows suspicious, watching Homer answer questions with unnatural precision. Meanwhile, the family celebrates Homer's new salary. Marge is thrilled. Lisa is curious, but Homer insists he is doing great at work, even though Frink literally dictates every word. Lisa senses something is wrong, but no one listens. Back at the plant, Dr. Spivak investigates Homer's strange behavior. She interrogates Lenny and Carl, offering them strong whiskey until they reveal the truth. Homer was terrible at his old job. She breaks into Homer's office and finds his earpiece, proving Frink has been controlling him. When she confronts Frink, he realizes with horror that he may have pushed Homer into a role far beyond his abilities, creating a monster he can no longer control. This is where everything begins to break, but the full disaster is just starting, and the consequences will explode in the next block. After discovering that Frink has been controlling Homer, Dr. becomes determined to expose him and bring everything crashing down. Meanwhile, Homer continues living the illusion that he is finally successful, believing he has become a respected professional at a state-of-the-art nuclear plant, but the truth is beginning to fall apart around him, and he is the only one who cannot see it. Frink realizes he made a terrible mistake. He never wanted to manipulate Homer forever. He only wanted to help him get through one interview. But now Homer depends on him for every decision, every sentence, every interaction. Working without Frink's guidance, even for 1 minute, could reveal Homer as a complete fraud and destroy his new career. The pressure becomes unbearable, and Frink begins breaking down, emotionally feeling guilty and afraid. At home, the family keeps celebrating Homer's success. Marge talks excitedly about the financial stability the job brings. Lisa still feels something is wrong, and Bart proudly tells everyone he always knew Homer had it in him. Homer tries to keep up the lie, but inside he feels the weight growing. He knows he cannot do the job alone, but pretending to be competent finally makes him feel respected for once. Back at the plant, Dr. Spivak prepares her plan. She knows Homer is incompetent. She knows someone is feeding him answers, and she is determined to uncover the whole scheme. She hacks into Frink's communication system, listening to the conversations between them, and begins collecting evidence to expose them both. Spivak feels betrayed, not because Homer took her job, but because the process was dishonest, unfair, and humiliating. Meanwhile, Homer faces increasing complexity at work. Ani Korhinen keeps giving him more responsibilities, more tasks, more meetings that require advanced knowledge. Homer panics every time Frink is not available and becomes completely dependent on him. Frink watches Homer stumble desperately through each situation and realizes he has created a man who can no longer function without him. It is a heartbreaking moment because Frink truly cares about Homer, but knows he cannot continue lying for him. Lisa finally confronts Homer during dinner, asking how he suddenly became an expert in nuclear science and why he refuses to explain anything. Homer becomes defensive. Marge shuts down the conversation and Lisa storms off. Frink watches through the glasses and finally understands that the situation is hurting the whole family, not just Homer. The breaking point comes when Dr. Spivak invites Lenny and Carl to a secret meeting. She offers them strong Swedish whiskey, and after a few drinks, they spill everything. Homer was the worst employee Springfield ever had, lazy, unqualified, and constantly causing accidents. Dr. Spivak records everything, planning to present it to Korhinen and expose Homer for good. Frink tries to warn Homer about the danger, but his guilt overwhelms him. He tells Homer he cannot help anymore. Homer panics, begging him not to leave him alone. Homer realizes that without Frink's voice in his ear, he is doomed, completely helpless in a job far beyond his capabilities. This emotional collapse sets the stage for the next major disaster, because soon Homer will have to face the truth without anyone whispering answers into his ear, and the result will be catastrophic. But that comes in the next block. The story now reaches the point where everything Homer has been hiding, everything Frink has been controlling, and everything Dr. has been planning finally begins to collide. Homer arrives at work without Frink's help for the first time, terrified, confused, and completely unprepared. He knows one wrong sentence could expose him, but Frink's voice is gone, replaced by silence and fear. Ani Korhinen decides to take Homer on a company ski retreat, something meant to build trust and teamwork. Homer tries to escape, tries to stall, tries anything to avoid being forced into technical conversations without the voice in his ear. But Korhinen is excited to show Homer off, believing he is one of the brightest minds they have ever hired. Meanwhile, Dr. Spivak secretly hacks into Frink's systems, gaining access to Homer's headset and becoming the new voice in his mind. Homer hears her voice and panics. He realizes she knows everything and is using the moment to force him into confessing the truth. As the cable lift ascends the mountain, Spivak pressures him step by step, pushing him to admit he lied about everything. Marge tries to comfort him, unaware of the full situation, but she feels something is terribly wrong with Homer's behavior. Frink watches helplessly from home, regretting everything. He wanted to help Homer succeed, not destroy his confidence and dignity. The emotional weight breaks him, and he realizes he must let Homer face the consequences alone, even if it hurts. At the top of the mountain, the tension rises. Homer steps forward, trembling. Korhinen and other employees wait, expecting him to give an inspiring speech, but instead, Homer's voice shakes. He finally confesses he is a fraud, that he never knew what he was doing, and that someone else guided him through the interview and every day afterward. For a moment, everything is silent. Then something unexpected happens. The other employees begin admitting they also lied about skills, background, and qualifications. They too faked competence. They too exaggerated achievements. The company is full of frauds trying to survive in a competitive world. Homer is not the only one pretending. He is simply the most honest about it now. The relief in Homer's face is enormous. He finally let go of the pressure, the pretending, the fear, but as soon as the confession ends, he slips on the snow, falls backwards and slides down the entire mountain in pure Homer fashion, crashing off a cliff and injuring himself badly. Meanwhile, Dr. Spivak feels defeated. Her plan to expose Homer backfired because everyone else admitted their own lies. She wanted justice, but instead found out the entire corporate structure was built on pretense. She disappears in frustration, realizing she can no longer use Homer to climb the ladder. At the hospital, Homer recovers slowly, humbled, exhausted, and strangely peaceful. When he is finally discharged, he returns to Springfield, disappointed. But relieved, he goes back to his old job at the nuclear plant, the place where he is terrible at his job, but at least honest about it. Everything he built collapsed, but the weight he carried is finally gone. And now only one question remains. What lesson does Homer take from all of this? The answer arrives in the next and final block. After Homer returns to Springfield, everything feels quieter, slower, almost to normal. He walks back into the old nuclear plant. And even though the job is boring, even though no one respects him, even though he is still terrible at everything, something is different inside him. For the first time in years, he is not pretending to be someone else. Frink visits him filled with guilt and apologizes, saying he never wanted to push Homer into disaster. Homer simply laughs gently and says the truth is he liked believing he could be great. Even if it was only for a moment, he thanks Frink for giving him that chance. Even if it ended in a spectacular Homer-style crash off a mountain. Marge welcomes him home with relief. She admits she missed the version of Homer who was simple and honest, not the one trying to be a corporate genius, guided by someone else's voice. Lisa also feels more at peace, seeing Homer grounded again, real again, human again. With all of their flaws exposed, the family begins to reconnect in a softer, quieter way. Dr. Spivak, on the other hand, spirals into frustration. Her attempt to expose Homer only revealed the truth about the entire company, that everyone lies and improvises and survives by pretending. She thought revealing Homer would bring justice, but instead, she learned something uncomfortable about the corporate world, that competence matters less than confidence and image. Meanwhile, Homer struggles with a new kind of existential crisis. He wonders if he will ever be more than the man at the bottom of the company chart, the man who always falls, the man who never grows, but then something unexpected happens. He overhears Marge telling Lisa that she is proud of Homer, not for being smart or perfect, but for trying, for caring, and for admitting the truth when it mattered. Homer realizes that maybe greatness is not becoming a genius, but becoming someone honest enough to fail and still stand up again. The episode wraps up with Homer finally accepting himself. He understands that every time he tried to be smarter than he was, he got lost. And every time he tried to impress the world, he fell. But every time he was simply Homer, he somehow found a way to be loved. He is still clumsy, still confused, still flawed, but now he is at peace with that. And just when everything settles, Homer opens his lunchbox at work and accidentally triggers a meltdown alarm, causing everyone to panic, while he calmly says, "Well, at least I am failing at the job I was born to fail at." The scene fades with Springfield screaming in the background and Homer smiling, relaxed. Because for once he is failing honestly, not pretending successfully. And that is the wild story of Homer's rise and fall as a nuclear imposter. A journey filled with lies, explosions, snow cliffs, and at least 3 emotional breakdowns. Most of them his. If you enjoyed diving into this Simpsons chaos, do not forget to hit that subscribe button, because unlike Homer's resume, it is completely free and actually works. Drop a like if you survived this corporate disaster. And tell me in the comments, would you let Professor Frink control your life? through an earpiece or wood, you end up crashing down a mountain like Homer did. Thanks for watching, and remember, if you ever feel like a fraud, just relax. You are probably still doing better than Homer at his job. See you in the next episode of Springfield Chaos.